Grab a seat. We're got a treat for us tonight. Josh Robinson is going to be speaking to us. Josh is coming all the way from the Arnold Church of Christ in Missouri. I don't know. St. Louis, okay. I've heard of that one. Anyway, he's the Director of Communications for the Manna Project, and he'll be telling us more about the Manna Project. He is a deacon at the Arnold Church of Christ in Missouri. He is a graduate of the Memphis School of Preaching, spent many years in full-time ministry, has organized mission works, and routinely speaks at various brotherhood events. He's also experienced in video and media production and operates Uplift Media, helping the church reach the lost online. Married to Laura Beth, they have two children, Katie and Ridge. Josh, talk to us.
All right, I appreciate that introduction. Trey said, and if you don't like what you hear tonight, you blame Trey, because Trey invited me. And he's not here tonight, so I don't know what that means or what that implies, but I do appreciate it. He said, give me something to read, so that's the Bible I send to everybody. So maybe all this stuff will make a little bit more sense as we go through this evening. But I do want to tell you all about the Manna Project, what we do. I just got back from Africa this morning at 1 a.m. So when I say we're in it, and we're in it all the time, 24 days in Africa, we just got back. Been in Nepal this year. We're going to talk about all those things. But we're actively involved in all the cool stuff that we do. And I want to tell you about what the Manna Project is, what it means, why maybe you should be excited about it, and how what we do at the Manna Project benefits everybody, and how I'm hoping that what you see tonight, that you can kind of take it and grab a hold of it and go home and say, you know what, I can use this kind of stuff in my walk as a Christian. And words are so hard when you've been on a plane for like 30 hours. Words are hard. So we're going to see what's on the screen. Mission facts. The fact of the matter is, domestically, we're losing 300 congregations each year. Now, the folks at House to House School of Evangelism, they've been doing a great job of combining some of these statistics the last few years. 300 congregations are folding each and every year. How many of us know of a congregation that used to exist and no longer does? That is the sad, kind of sorry state of affairs in the American church. And post-COVID, it's that way. I preach sometimes for a little congregation in St. Louis. We have 12 members if everybody shows up on a Sunday morning. That's not the Arnold Church. That's the Sullivan Church of Christ out towards Branson. And they don't have a preacher. And I'll go over there and fill in, and I love them, and we're trying to help them reach their community. But when I show up with all this gray in my beard and I'm the youth group, you know, I wonder how much longer that congregation's there. And when you lose 300 congregations a year domestically, what happens to all the work and all the men that are working overseas that are supported by those congregations? We're not just losing 300 congregations a year, we're losing 600 or 900 or 1,200 congregations worldwide every single year. So at the Manna Project, the last several years we've been looking at all this stuff and like, how do we do things differently? How do we do it differently? We want to make it completely native. We want to make these men self-supporting when they're overseas so that they don't have to rely on American dollars. Mission work should not involve Facebook solicitation. Anybody ever get the message from some guy in India who has a church, a mission work, 1,000 orphans living in his home? He said, if you just send me $50, I can help all these orphans, or I can help this in my ministry. And you're saying, oh, man, this guy's doing good work. He needs money. He's a member of the church. But I send him $50, and you send him $50, and you send him $50. He's made $500 this month, where most everybody else made $20. It's a disparity. It causes all sorts of issues. That's not the way mission works, and preachers overseas should get their funding. And it's also not, as missionaries, we roll up in some foreign country with a war chest like Daddy Warbucks and just, what do y'all need? Let's go out and raise $1 million so y'all can have the nicest church building in your country, in this village. We want to keep the process completely native. What we do is we train local men to preach, teach, and to farm. We have bush schools to train street preachers. What do I mean when I say bush schools? Our school buildings, our church buildings look like every other building in their village. If every building in their village is sticks and mud, the church building is sticks and mud. You're going to see videos of our school in Talawanda that we just got back from in Tanzania. It's a bush school. We don't even have electricity run there yet. It's not possible. Hopefully in the next year or so we can. We got some solar panels for some folks to charge their phones, and that's about it. We just got running water there this past year. It's a bush school. It's like every other building in the village, in and around them. We train street preachers. I graduated from the Memphis School of Preaching. I hope that I have the ability to stand up and preach. Men overseas don't need to be able to stand in front of a lectureship or a polishing the pulpit and wax eloquently. They need to be able to go to the street corner and say, hey guys, hey, come here a minute, come here, hey, you. Hey, you know about Jesus? Well, not really. Well, here, let me tell you about Jesus. Let me tell you about his church. Let me tell you about salvation and how you become a part of it. That's what we need. That's what we need to train. So we have bush schools. We train street preachers. Self-sufficiency in ministry. We teach these guys to farm so that they provide for themselves. When you live overseas, 90% of your budget every month is for food. Anybody got teenagers living at the house? You think 90% of your budget every month is for food, right? And they're like, oh, Mom, man, Dad, we ain't got no food in the house. What's that mean? That means you're out of Pop-Tarts, you're out of mac and cheese. How many green beans you still got in the cabinet, right? You got a ton of food in the house. Oh, we're starving to death. We just sang the Lord's Prayer, right? If you weren't here for the singing. Give us this day our daily bread. When you live overseas, you live on daily bread. You have no way to preserve or refrigerate food. You got no deep freezer. You go out every day and you provide for yourself. If we can teach these guys how to farm, and most of these places are in tropical or subtropical areas, the growing season is almost a year long. If we can teach them to provide 90% of their budget, they're well on their way. None of our students, none of the local preachers receive American dollars to go back to their villages and preach the gospel. We start new congregations every week. We started one while we were there. Planted a congregation. There's a preacher that graduated, went out. We had 7 baptisms while we were over there. Now there's a congregation. They're meeting in just a local room. They're renting until they can build them some stick walls and put some tarp over it, and that's their church building. Why? Because that's what it looks like there. Student scholarships. So no American dollars are ever provided to students. All of our funding goes to the school to provide some infrastructure there. Student scholarships, what do I mean? That's what we tell the students you're receiving. You're receiving a scholarship so that they appreciate what they have. You can come to our school in Renzori, in Talawanda, in Nepal, wherever it happens to be. You can come to our school, and we're going to give you a scholarship. That means your tuition is free. That means we're going to give you a place to live for 2 years, and we're going to give you food. Food, shelter, and a biblical education, and not just biblical, but vocational, right? So what do? We train in the Bible. We train in evangelism, church growth, leadership. We just don't want to plant congregations overseas and villages. We want those congregations to have elders and deacons. We want those congregations to be biblically organized, to have leadership. We teach in agriculture. We teach the ladies how to sew. We teach literacy. We go all over the place, and you know what we find? Folks can't read. You know, that's a problem here. There are people right here in this community that cannot read. I graduated high school in 2000. For some of you, then, that's old. For some of you, that's young. Still right in the middle. That's okay. I graduated with some folks that couldn't read. Work with them later. The boss gave us a list. Here, man, you read it. I know what that means. We all have an opportunity to reach out and to teach folks sometimes, not just with Bible, but with other things. Vocational skills, we've taught welding before. We've taught automotive repair in Nepal. We're going to do a class next year on motorbike clutch repair. Because if you see the way these folks drive motorcycles in Nepal, man, they burn up some clutches because they drive real crazy. But they're like, this is our only mode of transportation. It costs us a lot of money to get this fixed. If I could do this myself, man, I could save so much money to provide for my family. All right, great, let's teach you that. This is what the Manna Project does in a nutshell. We teach guys, we teach members of the church overseas to be self-sufficient so that they don't have to have our money to do the Lord's work. That's what it's all absolutely about. What gets you excited this evening? Matthew 6 and verse 21, right? Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Where your heart is, that where your treasure is. You show me your banking app. Nobody has a checkbook anymore, right? You show me your banking app, I'm going to show you exactly where your heart is. That's where you're spending your money. What gets you wound up? What gets you excited? What makes you happy? What are you spending your money on? How do we feel about evangelism, right? Matthew 18 or 28, 18 through 20, right? Go into all the world to preach the gospel, to teach, baptize those folks, to teach them again, to continue to teach them so that they become disciples and followers of Christ. That's what we're told to do. That's what we do at the Manna Project. That's what we do as individual Christians. It doesn't matter that we get to go overseas and do cool things. If we're not willing to teach the gospel to people at home, Doesn't matter. How many people here, and I don't mean to be real personal or judgmental, but how many people here have friends? I hope everybody, right? You're like, oh man, if Trey doesn't have friends. You know, Trey's not here, and I know Trey, so I can pick on him a little bit. So if you're like Trey, then I'm sorry. But most of us have friends. How many people got family? Well, there's a couple people in here I'm really worried about. You ain't got no family? Where'd you come from? How'd you get here? All right, we all have friends, we all have families, we all work with people, we all go to school with people. You got neighbors, they need the gospel. I will never be able to reach them with the gospel. The Manna Project is never going to be able to reach your neighbor with the gospel. You have to do that. It has to be you. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care, right? If you have a relationship with somebody, you go out and reach them with the gospel. It has to be you. How do you feel about evangelism? Do you love souls? Romans 9 and verse 3, right? Paul says, I wish that I could be accursed for Christ for my kinsman's sake. What he's saying is that if I could lose my soul, if I could give up my soul, my salvation, and give it to the Jews so that they could go to heaven, he said, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Now, we know it doesn't work that way. But do you love souls the way Paul did? Now, when Paul was sitting outside Walmart watching people walk in, yes, they had Walmart in the first century, in case you were curious. He's watching folks walk in and out of Walmart. And he just doesn't see John and Sally getting groceries. He sees people who are lost, who are going to hell, and he wants to do something about it. He said, if I could give up my salvation for these guys, I would. Are there people in your life that if you could give up your salvation so that they could go to heaven, would you do that? Do you love souls that much that you want them to go to heaven so much that you trade places with them if you could? If not, think about it. I want you to think about this picture right here. There's a lady right here in a pond in the middle of Tanzania who's being baptized into Christ. Does that make you excited? Does that make you happy? Are you like, yes, man, look at these folks are hungry for the gospel and they're putting on Christ and this is awesome. If I instead took a picture of your truck when it was brand new and shiny and put it up there for everybody to see, would that make you happier than this picture of this lady being baptized? If I took a picture of the biggest deer you ever killed, the biggest fish you ever caught, the best quilt you ever knitted, whatever, put your thing in there. And I showed it to everybody and said, hey, look how cool this is. Would that make you happier than this lady being baptized? And if it does, you need to stop and think a minute. This ought to be the coolest thing you see today. Here's somebody putting on Christ in baptism overseas. The gospel knows no boundaries. It is good every single where we go. And where do we go? At the Manna Project, we work right now in these 4 places. We're fixing to start a work in Panama. We're trying to get it off the ground this year. If not, it's going to be early next year. So Cameroon, Uganda, Tanzania, and Nepal. Like, okay, Josh, that's cool. Where are those places at? Let me help. Right? So there's Cameroon, Uganda, Tanzania, and Nepal is way over here. So you got India, you got China, and Nepal is right there in the middle. We work in all these places, operating preaching schools or resource centers to help these brethren. The Modele School of Preaching in Cameroon, their main crop is bananas. We can have about 20 students at a time there. They're self-sufficient. And what does that mean? That means that they can provide for their own food, water, that they're able to sell enough produce and livestock to be able to provide for their other needs. Our operational costs, these folks are absolutely self-sufficient now. What helps spur that growth is the fact that Cameroon is still experiencing civil war, and we can't get in. But they said, hey, we got this. This is exactly what we're talking about. The Modele School is still, even though Americans can't come in, they're like, we've got the school, we can still worship, we can still teach others. This is exactly what we want to do. Renzori School of Preaching in Uganda. We were trying to go to Uganda this year. Uganda has stopped all Americans from coming in from getting visas. Hopefully we can get in toward the end of the year. But so far right now, it's hard to get into Uganda because of some political things that are going on. 20 students, their main crop is vanilla. How many people got a garden in their house right now? I've been gone for a month. My wife's been picking my garden, making zucchini bread, bringing it to me. It's pretty fantastic. But you know what I don't have in my garden? Vanilla. That's just not something we grow in Alabama, Tennessee. I'm originally from Tennessee, which is why I talk this way. You're like, man, he don't sound like he's from St. Louis. It's because I ain't. I am from McMinnville, Tennessee, and I know where I'm at, but go Vols. Anyway, there's some orange in here. And I'm just assuming that y'all are Vols fans. Probably not, but it's okay. It's okay. Student housing, vanilla. Our operational costs, you think, man, that budget's not a whole lot a month. You look at some of the other preaching schools that are overseas that are $20,000 or $30,000 a month. One of the main things is we don't have giant facilities with lots of infrastructure. We operate bush schools that are native. Another thing is we don't provide stipends and salaries for students. That helps keep our operational costs low, and so we can diversify what we do. That is our school in Uganda. Talawanda, we're going to see a lot. I just spent 3 weeks with these folks, this staff and the students. Super awesome folks, and we're going to talk about Talawanda and at length here in just a second. All right, so let's talk about Nepal. So in January, I spent about 3.5 weeks in Nepal talking about all sorts of really cool stuff. And I have movies. How many people like movies? All right, so there's a 3-minute video on Nepal we're going to watch right now. There's a 2-minute video on Africa we're going to watch in just a minute. I didn't bring any popcorn. Really sorry. Next time, I promise I'll do better. The elder said they didn't want you eating in an auditorium anyway, so I'm just trying to help y'all out a little bit. But this is just a 3-minute video that I shot. So as director of communications, I produce all this kind of content. So I can show y'all what we're doing. I produce educational content for our students overseas. I produce all sorts of stuff so we can use it to educate lots and lots of folks. But this is just a 3-minute taste of what we do in Nepal. All right, so that's a real quick look about the kind of stuff that we're doing there in Nepal. I absolutely love Nepal as far as the country. Here it is. I hope you see it just a little bit easier. And if you're thinking, man, there was a lot of like boats and trains and planes and automobiles in that video. These are all the places we hit in a 3-week span in Nepal. Visiting congregations all over. We're starting a resource center down here in Demak. So this is Bangladesh. This is India. Pakistan's right over here. We're able to do a lot of international kind of studying with students in Nepal. And so we're starting a resource center where we're doing short classes, kind of like a condensed version of a preaching school there. And I absolutely love Nepal. I was there for 3 weeks, and there was something that surprised me a lot. How many people have been overseas either traveling or on a mission trip? What kind of folks we got in here? What is the number one thing that always happens on a mission trip overseas? Give me money. Please. So I need just a little bit. Every time you go somewhere, somebody's asking for something. In 3 weeks in Nepal, nobody asked me for a dime. They said, brethren, can we have some ladies to come over to help teach some ladies' days? Can we have some biblical material we can translate into Nepali? Because we are starving for biblical material. Can you help teach our members how to read and help us get some reading classes going? They didn't ask to pay for all that. They're just like, we need material. We need leadership. We need growth. Absolutely an incredible experience. My first time in Nepal in January. We're going to go back this January with a group of folks from Forest Hill Church of Christ in Memphis. And we're going to do an agriculture and evangelism kind of program for a week in January. Helping them install some water pumps, helping them with their agriculture, goat herd production, all sorts of really cool stuff if you like goats. So our main purposes were to meet with several congregations. We went with representatives from like 40 or something different congregations. There's about 100 congregations in Nepal right now. And we just met with representatives from everybody. What can we help y'all with? What do you need? We're going to do this resource center here, and it's not us coming in as Americans like, this is how we're going to do it because we're cool. And I mean, America's awesome. And you don't realize how awesome America is until you leave and you come home and you eat at like Shake Shack at the airport, and you're like, oh, man, this is so good. Oh, it's till you use a restroom. Do you sleep in a bed with an air conditioner? Oh, man, God bless America. But we don't go in as Americans and say, hey, this is what y'all should be doing because this is what we do. The church in Tanzania, the church in Uganda, the church in Nepal should look different than the church in America. Now, in doctrine and practices, it should be the same. Paul should walk into any congregation and anywhere and recognize it as the same congregation that he left in Corinth or Ephesus or anywhere else. But it ought to look the same. You notice nobody was sitting in pews in that video. Nobody was air conditioned, right? It ought to look different. It ought to feel different. And so that's what we try to do. We met with all these folks. What can we get? What can we do to help y'all? We worked with World Video Bible School, and we've got a digital preaching school in a box now. It comes with a wireless projector, hard drive, iPad. So you can go to any village, any place out in the bush, in the jungle, and show this and train brethren. We had 2 parcels of land donated in that little area I showed you on the map. 2 parcels of land that we can use as a demo farm. We can train people how to do rice production, how we can do goat, rabbit, guinea pig. Anybody ever eat a guinea pig? I'd like to say you're missing out, but we train folks on how to use food that way. When I say I'm going to show up with chicken for dinner, it's going to come from Walmart or KFC or Chick-fil-A, right? When you go to Tanzania and you say, hey, I'm bringing for a chicken for dinner, you show up and it says, bark, 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 bark. And if I showed up at your house tonight with a live chicken and said, this is what we're going to eat, what would you do? You like, get out of my house right now. You get that thing out of my house. It's not the way they do it overseas, right? So we're going to do demo farm. We have some buildings there that we get to have a resource center, that we get to have students come in and stay while they're there. We're really excited about all the cool stuff we're going to do because it's short courses year-round. Come for a 2-week class on eldership. Come for a 2 or 4-week class on evangelism. Come for a 2-week class on, the church, worship of the church. Come learn and study this thing. Come for 2 weeks, come for a week, learn how to fix your motorbike. We're going to have language courses every night, not like Greek or Hebrew, but Nepali. So you can read your Bible in your own language every night. That's what we want to do. That's what we're doing in Nepal. This is us with some of the folks and member of the congregation there. Absolutely wonderful. The cool things that we're able to do in Nepal. And I'll show you some pictures. So as the director of communications, I preach, I teach, I do everything everybody else does. I grew up on a farm in Tennessee. We raised cattle. We had a big garden, way bigger than anything I ever wanted as a teenager. I didn't want to pull weeds and pick stuff. I didn't care. You know what the first thing I did when I got married and had my own kids and I got a house now? I put in a garden. Why? I don't know. But that's what you do, right? As one does, essentially. But as a director of communications, one of the things I also get to do, besides go around and speak and talk about the Manna Project, is I get to fly the drone and operate the cameras. And when you pull out a camera or a drone overseas, man, you are the rock star. Like here, nobody cares I'm a dork. And it's a little nerdy sometimes. But that's fine. It's fine. I can handle that. But overseas, man, people are like, you are the greatest thing ever. And you got the camera and you're showing them their video. So that's why all the people want to come and smile with me. It's not because they really like me or I'm that charismatic or special. It's because I got the camera. So that's me with those folks. Here's the congregation. This is the one we're actually going to go back to in January and work with them. Dirt floors. Sometimes they'll put pieces of foam on the bottom to help cushion it. You should be very thankful for this thing you're sitting in right now. Just mud dirt walls. This is a congregation of about 40 people up in the village in the mountains in the jungle of Nepal. You know what doesn't happen there? The young folks don't leave. This is our home. This is where our farm is. This is where our family is. There is a big city like 30, 40 minutes down the mountain. Look at all the young folks that are there staying in this community. We're going to go back and train them so that their farms are more productive. We do farm efficiency a lot. We'll bring back soil and do testing and try to help them teach. But, we've been in places, and if you've ever planted okra, right? You put okra this far apart. Doop, doop, 8 inches apart. They're putting okra 3 foot apart. Here's a spot, how much more okra could I get out of this 20 by 20 foot piece of land if I planted it the way it's supposed to be planted, if I watered it the way it's supposed to be watered, if I mulched it so it retained its water? If this piece of land I've been planting sesame in for the last 40 years, so I can make sesame oil that cost me $1 at the store. If I just spent that $1 and turned this whole thing into moringa or cassava or corn or bananas or something else that's going to produce more income and more food for my family, wouldn't that be better? You saw some goats in that video, right? There's one on the back of the motorcycle. There's goats. They don't water their goats in Nepal. Goats don't need water. They're eating leaves. Leaves have water in them. I'm like, well, stop. How do you sell your goats? Well, by weight. Well, if you gave them water, wouldn't they weigh more? Wouldn't they taste better? Yeah. You just see light bulbs going off. We teach a lot of farm efficiency. Let's take what you have and let's do it a little bit better so that you can increase production for your family and so you can sell it, right? They've got market gardens. They've got truck gardens, what we call them in Tennessee. Here's Evan Manning. He went with us on this trip, promote our main translator and guy in Nepal. But why I have this is what's on the front of that pulpit. Every pulpit that has room in Nepal has James 1:22. Now, y'all don't read Nepali. I don't read Nepali. But that says, James 22, be you a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Man, that is the theme verse for the Church of Christ in Nepal. Be ye a doer of the word. Every time they go in, right here on the front of the pulpit, be a doer of the word. How much better could we be if we thought every day, how could I be a doer of the word today and not just a hearer only? How can I take what I hear and go out and apply it? That's what they want to do in Nepal. So there's Gage Coldwater, Gage Majabridi in Swahili. Coldwater. Everybody across the world thinks it's so funny. His name is Coldwater. The guy on the left, his name is Ram. He's one of the very first Christians in Nepal in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. The church is young in Nepal. The guy on the right, his name is Searcha. I would love to tell you his story at some other time. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'm going to have his interview published. You can watch it on our Facebook, YouTube accounts, all those kind of places. This is the guy on the right who converted 5 villages up in the mountains by himself. He's baptized hundreds of folks in the face of strict Hindu persecution. They tore down his church building. They burnt down his house. They threatened to kill him. And he said, here I am. If you kill me, my blood will raise up more Christians. He just looked these guys in the eyes and walked off. Absolutely awesome dude. Searcha. Just an incredible example of faithful Christianity. And these are the kind of folks that I like to find, we like to talk to, and figure out how what they do maybe inspires us to be a little bit more faithful in what we do and how it has impacted their communities overseas. All right, number next on the picture slideshow is crocodiles. So one of the places we stayed was across from a national park in Nepal. And they have crocodile cages, right? They're rehabilitating crocodiles. Did you see the baptism in the end of that video? That is the Coldwater River. We had to baptize in the Coldwater River because we had to cross the river. It was a warm water river and there were crocodiles in there. I said, why don't we baptize folks over here? Oh, because we're going to get eaten. Oh, that's great. I don't want to get eaten by a crocodile today. That would be very bad. I feel like my wife wants me to come home. And so we're walking around and I'm like, guys, stop a minute. You want to take a picture? They don't lock any of the doors of the crocodile cages. And I tried to get old Evan in there to go in there and smack one on the tail. He would not do it. That would have made an epic photo. So if you've ever got your kids in Nepal at this crocodile park, y'all watch them really good because it's snack time. All right, last picture for Nepal. I always like to throw a dog picture. How many people love dogs? How many people love dogs with an incredible underbite? Man, look at the underbite on that dog. Dogs are everywhere in Nepal. This is something you don't see a lot of places because they eat dogs, a lot of other places. But if they've got clothes on, they generally belong to somebody. Look at that sweater. He looks like such a dapper young fellow. But that is a face only a mother could love. You've heard of Kathmandu, right? The capital city of Nepal. I want to introduce you tonight to Dogmandu. Dogmandu with the underbite. I love him. Great. My first hour, first day, first minute in Nepal, I get off the airplane, leave the airport. It's the first thing I see. I'm like, man, it's going to be a great trip. Look at that dog. All right. So I literally got back today from Tanzania. We rolled into the Memphis airport about 1 o'clock. I've gotten some amount of sleep. And if I just lay down in a minute and take a nap, y'all just go right along and just go on without me. It'll be fine. But we got back. We spent 3 weeks over there, so July into August, working with our school in Talwanda. I've got a video for you just like the other one, except this one they're singing in Swahili instead of Nepali. But it's a 2-minute or so taste. I hope it's good. I've been editing it on an airplane overnight. In case you're wondering how international travel works, yesterday, Tuesday, August the 8th, right? How many hours were in yesterday? How many? 24. I spent 32 hours in yesterday. Thank you, time zones. I was up, give or take, almost 60 by the time we left and got where we blah, blah, blah. I squeezed 32 hours. So if you've ever wanted to get more time in the day, get on a plane, head west. That's how you do it. I don't recommend it, but y'all are the first people besides my wife to see this video, so I hope it makes sense. I hope it kind of shows you the things that we're doing, the farm and agriculture production, the graduation that we had of our students in Talwanda. But y'all take a break. Check it out.
Wangu niende motoni, ni kitu gani cho kitakacho nifanya? Nimwache Yesu wangu niende motoni, ni kitu gani cho kitakacho nifanya? Nimwache Yesu wangu niende motoni, ni kitu gani cho kitakacho nifanya? Nimwache Yesu wangu niende motoni, ni mali zangu hizo zitakazo nifanya? Nimwache Yesu wangu niende motoni, ni kitu gani hicho kitakacho nifanya? Nimwache Yesu wangu niende motoni, ni wazazi wangu wao watakao nifanya? Nimwache Yesu wangu niende motoni, ni kitu gani cho kitakacho nifanya? Nimwache Yesu wangu niende motoni, nitamwimbia Bwana kwa kuwa yeye ameniona. Nitamwimbia Bwana kwa kuwa yeye ameniona. Bwana Yesu katika shida, katika dhiki, ameniona. Nitamwimbia Bwana kwa kuwa yeye ameniona. Nitamwimbia Bwana kwa kuwa yeye ameniona. Kwenye biashara, katika kazi na shambani, huyu Bwana Yesu ameniona.
That is Sabana, and Sabana is awesome. And we're going to talk more about him in here in just a minute because I like him. He's my fave. So here's the country of Tanzania. There's our school in Talwanda. It's this far from Dar es Salaam, which is the capital, but this far takes you like 4.5 hours in Africa. And if you're thinking, man, I know of a lot of other works, there is the Andrew Connolly School up in Arusha. The Chamala School is down right in here. Nobody else is really working in Eastern Africa, Eastern Tanzania, which is highly Muslim. Super excited about our school there. We've converted over 600 Muslims in the last 2 or 3 years from our school in Talwanda. We've come up with correspondence courses and Bible studies to use just with Islamic folks because it's very highly Islamic over there. And so that's where we're located in Tanzania. And this is what we did. So this is some of us at the congregation in Msada. We met with school leadership. This was kind of a leadership trip we took over there. We were able to go to our graduation and watch 7 of our students graduate. But we did really boring office stuff, right? Review records, administration tasks, go over contracts, blah, 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 land documents. But a lot of encouragement, a lot of direction. We brought over a lot of new seed, a lot of new opportunities for some agricultural production. And that agricultural development was a lot of what we were wanting to work on. The school's running great. Maurice, our director, is really awesome. I will ask you and make a little aside right here. The second to last night we were in Tanzania. This would have been Sunday night, Saturday night? Saturday night. So your days and my days are different when I'm in Africa. Saturday night, Maurice gets a phone call from his wife. So he's traveling with us. We're doing things. His wife back in Arusha, the Andrew Conley School, was actually graduating their students. His 5-year-old son and his buddy, right? So 2 5-year-old kids in the street. If you've ever been overseas, right, it's just... they got hit by a motorcycle, what they call a boda. And both those kids had to go to the hospital. Maurice's son, Gage, named after our director, had a broken leg and some other injuries. The other kid had some internal injuries. He has to have eye surgery. He lost an ear. But his name is Gasper. They were both 5 years old. If you would please keep both of those boys in your prayers, it would be greatly appreciated. They both had some head injuries. They're both stable right now, but for a minute, we didn't know if either one of them were going to make it. But that is Gage and Gasper, 2 5-year-old boys in Tanzania. One is the son of our director there at the school. Maurice is this actually fellow right here. So that's Maurice. Fantastic guy. So please pray for them. But one of the things we did was we came over there. Maurice is doing a great job with the school. We're going to tweak the curriculum there a little bit to train more specifically some street-style preachers because that's what we need. Improved methods of land management, right? We're talking about how far apart we space our crops, how we rotate our crops, what crops we're planting with other crops, what crops work really good with other things, right? Can we plant our beans with our corn? Can we plant squash around the bottom to kind of shade everything else? Very much new livestock plan for market production. We're going to start raising more pigs there on our school in Talwanda. We've got goats right now. We've got chickens. We do a lot of chickens. You saw rabbits in the video. We raise rabbits. Rabbit urine is actually a really big market seller right now in Tanzania and some other places. Rabbit manure is great for agricultural production. And we were able to clear about 3 new acres of land. That you saw the tractor, right? We had to rent a tractor. And then, man, the tractor is so expensive. The tractor is so expensive. So how expensive is a tractor? It's $25 US for a day. It's $25 a day? Yeah, it's yeah. Call the guy. We are going to get him over here right now. But to buy one is like $15,000 US. So we can go and for $25 we had the farmer come over and till it. What we do is we take that and we scoop it all up and we make raised beds that are 1 meter wide, right, 3 foot across. Trail on each side so that you can get to all of it, and they're as long as the field is. So that's what we did. New livestock market production, land clearing. You saw the baptism. So one of our graduates, his name is Peter Paul. He's got 2 first names, essentially, straight from the Bible. And sometimes I call him Paul Peter, and sometimes I call him Peter Paul. But I think it's Paul Peter. This village up in the mountains, that's where he's from. He went back. He said, can y'all brethren come and do a seminar? So sure, I preached on the church gates, preached on salvation. Never happened to me before, but there were a lot of folks there who had been drinking that morning. And they said, we would love to obey the gospel, but we want to do it sober. I'm like, you should totally do that sober. You should not do that while you're drunk. There were 2 sober guys there who you saw. We baptized them into Christ. The next day, 5 of those guys showed up sober, said that they weren't going to be drinking at all anymore, that they were going to give it up for Christ. And now there's a congregation of 7 folks where before there was no congregation at all. This kind of stuff happens all the time. Our school in Rwenzori baptized 72 people last quarter, April through June. Their report to me says, hey, Josh, we baptized 72 people last quarter. Hundreds of folks in Africa and Nepal are putting on Christ every single year. Love what we're doing. So we actually got to go to the school in Morogoro. There's an agriculture school. We took our director. This is Gage showing them about the different sorghum and milo that we grow in this country, showing them some of the stuff that we can produce over here. We're actually going to partner up with them for some sorghum and milo production and work with this university in Morogoro. But this is the first time we've had a chance to get Maurice, our farm and school director over there. He's like, man, this stuff is so cool. He's like, you can do all this? Yeah. And so he is super wound up and excited. Here is Faustin. He is our assistant school director. That's him and his wife at his church building. That's the church building in Mendukini. I want to start singing some Lee Greenwood right now, but I'm not going to. This is what they got. This is normal and average for their village, which is what we help to provide for them. Here's all of us on our way to services one day. You saw that Land Cruiser that's supposed to seat like 7 people? There's full, and then there's Africa full. All right. So here is Gage, our director, and the guy with the awesome smile, his name is Sabana. He is 7, and he is my primary teacher for the language of Swahili. My Swahili's probably not great, but you can blame this guy right here with the awesome smile. Charlie's an awesome dude. Charlie was also there helping teach me Swahili. He thought teaching the Mzungu was the most incredible thing in the world. Charlie and Sabana are some of the most uplifting, encouraging kids I've ever seen in my life, but they all struggle. Charlie, his mom was HIV positive, which means he is now, right? HIV positive. He's 10 years old. Love it. Absolutely love it. All right, Andy Griffith, man. Y'all just hit pause. We're going to be there in a minute. We can all watch it together. This is Joseph Kazidi. He just graduated. He has an incredible story. Before he came to preaching school, he was a security guard. He was shot 3 times. Love to tell you his story sometime if we have the opportunity. There we go. This is inside. You saw those circular huts. This is inside one of them. This is student housing. Better than a lot of places you can find, sometimes actually in villages. This is Gage and Maurice. We're talking about when you dig out the bottom of a termite mound, how rich that is in nitrogen and other things you can use for fertilizer. One of the cool things that we're helping teach, like this is stuff you have. Let's use it to enrich this ground that we have. And this is Proud Mary. She is, I always like to end a section with a picture of a dog because dogs are awesome. But this is Proud Mary. She's the official guard dog of our Talawanda School of Preaching. So let's talk about a few facts as we close it because we're wrapping it up right now, I promise. Let's talk about some verses real quick. John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Does that include places like Tanzania and Nepal? Does that include places like Decatur, Jasper, McMinnville, Tennessee, Memphis, St. Louis? Yeah. If we're not willing to evangelize at home, it doesn't matter how cool the stuff we do as overseas are. We have to be working here. Mark 16, Matthew 28, we're all familiar with the Great Commission. Acts chapter 8 and verse 4, right? They went everywhere preaching the word. Why? Because they were Christians. Ephesians 3 and verse 10 is a passage we're not as familiar with. But Paul says, through the church, the manifold wisdom of God is to be made known unto all nations. Through the what? That verse says, through the church. Who's the church? Wednesday night crowd. Y'all come on now. Through us. Through us. The manifold wisdom of God is made known. I hope that what you've seen with the Manna Project tonight is just plain, it's simple, it makes sense from a lot of practical ways. What we do, you can do. You don't have to travel to evangelize. We pointed that out several times. You have folks that you know right now that need the gospel, that are not going to make it to heaven unless you talk to them about it. Invite them to services. Invite them to VBS, gospel meeting. Invite them to some event you're having. It's a great way for them to come and to meet people, to make some connections. Once you develop that relationship, say, hey, man, I'd love to sit down and study the Bible with you. A number of great tools. We are actually right now on this trip, took the whole house-to-house School of Evangelism back to the Bible study series and translated it into Swahili for us to be able to use overseas. You know folks that need help, that need to be encouraged. Do it. That's what we train these men to do overseas. How many people here have a garden? Can go to the grocery store and buy groceries? There's some people right here that can't do that. And you can go take them some food. You can go mow their yard. I've been gone for 3.5 weeks. I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks more because I'm here. I'm in Jasper on Sunday. Then we're going straight to polishing the pulpit. I got some members of the church that are going to mow my yard while I'm gone because I need help. We train these men over there to be self-sufficient. Do you have skills right now that the church here can use? How many people can do something? Everybody can. Talk to a deacon. Talk to an elder. It's like, hey, I got this skill. How can I help somebody? James 5:16 is one of my favorite passages of all time, especially right now. Right? The effective fervent prayer of the righteous man avails much. All right, does that mean I got to stop? All right, we're fixing to be done. You have skills that can apply to everybody. Please go out. Please use them. I would ask that you take a picture of this. I have one slide left. Take a picture of this. You can find us online, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those kind of places. When we're overseas, we post lots of stuff kind of daily as it happens. All the videos that we do, we send up. You can also go to manafarm.org and go to contact. You can sign up for our newsletter. We send emails out once a week so you can see what we're doing on. This stuff takes money, y'all. And I'll leave it to the last. I'm not going to mention much more about it. This is how I make my living. This is how we do all the cool stuff that we do. We can't do it. We work with congregations. We love to work with individuals. I am overseen personally by the Arnold Church of Christ, where I'm a deacon. The overall work is overseen by the Forest Hill Church of Christ in Memphis. That QR code will take you right to my PayPal account, and you can donate electronically online. You can give me a check. You can give me $1 million in cash in the back. I won't ask where you got it. It'll be wonderful, I promise. But this, that's the weird thing about mission work is it does take money to work, and we love to partner people to make it happen. That's the Manna Project. I hope that not only have you seen that we do cool stuff, but what we do is simple and it's common sense and it's stuff anybody can do. And I hope that excites you. We're here. We've got some material. I appreciate it. As we close, let's close with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this day that you blessed us with. We're thankful for Christ and his sacrifice. We're thankful for this congregation. Pray that you continue to be with it and bless it. Help us all to put you first each and every day. Help us all to have the boldness to step out in Christ, to be effective evangelists and encouragers. We know that the world is a dark place, that so many people are struggling with so many things, and we all have the skills that are necessary to reach out and to encourage others. We're thankful for the good work that can happen overseas, but we're so thankful for all the work that happens here locally. Be with us as individual Christians, Father. Help us to use our skills and our talents for the glory of your kingdom. We're mindful of little Gage and little Gasper and their injuries from that accident. We pray that you be with them and bless them with healing, Father, if it be your will. We're so thankful for this opportunity we've had to come and to study and to learn more about your kingdom and the works that are going on in it tonight. Be with us as we leave here, Father. We're so thankful for everything. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.